On a cold, snowy day in February 1958, the world of football stood still. A plane carrying Manchester United's brilliant young team, the Busby Babes, crashed on a Munich runway. This isn't just a story about a football club. It's a story about unimaginable loss, unwavering spirit, and one of the most remarkable rebirths in sporting history. Today, we are going to explore how Manchester United rose from the ashes of tragedy to conquer Europe. The manager, Matt Busby, had a vision. He wanted to build a team of homegrown talent, young lads from the streets of Manchester and beyond, who played with flair, passion, and a fearless attacking style. He assembled a group of prodigious talents: the commanding Duncan Edwards, a player who seemed destined for greatness; the prolific goalscorer Tommy Taylor; the quick-thinking Roger Byrne, the team's captain. They were more than a team. They were a brotherhood, affectionately known as the Busby Babes. They had already won 2 league titles and were on the cusp of European glory, capturing the hearts of a nation with their youthful exuberance. They were returning from a European Cup quarter-final in Belgrade, having just secured their place in the semi-finals. The plane stopped in Munich to refuel. 2 attempts to take off in the treacherous, slushy conditions failed. On the 3rd attempt, disaster struck. The plane failed to gain enough height, skidding off the runway and bursting into flames. 23 people lost their lives, including 8 of those brilliant young players. Duncan Edwards, the titan of the team, fought bravely in the hospital for 15 days before he too succumbed to his injuries. The dream had turned into an unimaginable nightmare. In the immediate aftermath, there was a very real fear that Manchester United would cease to exist. The heart of the team had been ripped out. Manager Matt Busby himself was critically injured, receiving his last rites twice. He was unaware for weeks that so many of his boys were gone. The responsibility of holding the club together fell to his assistant, Jimmy Murphy. While Busby fought for his life in a German hospital, Murphy, who had missed the trip because he was managing the Welsh national team, had the heart-wrenching task of picking up the pieces. He had to identify bodies, comfort grieving families, and somehow field a football team. With a squad cobbled together from reserves, youth players, and emergency signings, a ghost team took to the field just 13 days after the crash. Old Trafford was shrouded in grief, but also united in defiance. Every spectator held a single, printed team sheet, as there was no program that day. The names of the fallen were listed alongside the makeshift lineup. The match itself was a blur of raw emotion. Manchester United won 3-0. It wasn't about the result. It was a statement. It was a promise that the club, and the spirit of the Busby Babes, would endure. That season, against all odds, they even reached the FA Cup final. They may have lost the match, but they had won the respect and admiration of the entire world. As Matt Busby slowly recovered, his initial instinct was to walk away from football forever. The guilt and grief were overwhelming. But his wife, Jean, reminded him of his boys. She told him, "You have to carry on for the lads who died." This became his new mission. The rebuilding would not be for him, but for them. It was a debt he felt he owed to the memories of Byrne, Edwards, Taylor, and all the others. He returned to the dugout, a man forever changed, but with a renewed, solemn purpose. The first phase of rebuilding was complete. Survival had been secured. Now, the second, more difficult phase began, the climb back to the top. The next few years were a painstaking process. Busby, alongside Jimmy Murphy, began scouting for a new generation of talent. The challenge was immense. How could anyone replace the likes of Duncan Edwards? The ghosts of Munich loomed large over Old Trafford. But slowly, new stars began to emerge. First came a tough-tackling, passionate midfielder from Dublin named Naby Styles. Then, a charismatic, prodigiously talented winger from Belfast, a young man named George Best. And from the local area, a survivor of the crash who had been just a boy on that fateful day, a forward with a thunderous shot and an indomitable will to win, Bobby Charlton. Charlton was the living link to the Busby Babes. He had survived the crash but had lost his closest friends. The emotional scars ran deep, but on the pitch, he channeled his grief into a quiet, determined brilliance. He became the cornerstone of the new team, its leader and its inspiration. Alongside him, George Best provided the magic. With his dazzling dribbling, rockstar looks, and rebellious streak, he was a new kind of footballing hero for a new decade. And in the heart of the team was Denis Law, the king, a Scottish striker signed from Torino, whose predatory instincts in front of goal were second to none. Together, Charlton, Best, and Law formed a new holy trinity, a forward line as potent and exciting as any in the world. This new-look team started to win. They lifted the FA Cup in 1963, a hugely significant moment that signalled their return as a major force. Then came the league titles in 1965 and 1967. The style of football was true to Busby's original philosophy: attacking, exciting, and full of flair. Old Trafford was alive again, not with the ghosts of the past, but with the thrilling promise of the future. The ultimate goal, however, the one that had been so cruelly snatched away in 1958, was the European Cup. It was the one trophy Busby craved above all others, the one he needed to win for his boys. In 1968, 10 years after the Munich tragedy, Manchester United reached the European Cup final at Wembley Stadium. Their opponents were the formidable Portuguese side, Benfica, led by the legendary Eusebio. The weight of history was on the shoulders of every United player. For Matt Busby and Bobby Charlton, it was more than a game. It was the culmination of a decade of pain, struggle, and rebuilding. It was destiny. The match was a tense affair. Bobby Charlton opened the scoring with a header, but Benfica equalised, sending the game into extra time. In those final 30 minutes, something clicked. George Best scored a magnificent solo goal, followed by strikes from Brian Kidd and another from Charlton. The final score was 4-1. As the final whistle blew, Matt Busby walked onto the pitch, tears streaming down his face. Bobby Charlton, the quiet survivor, embraced his manager. The journey was complete. They had not just won the European Cup, they had fulfilled a promise made in the darkest of days. They had honoured the memory of the Busby Babes in the most fitting way possible. The story of Manchester United's rebirth is a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome even the most devastating tragedy. It's a story of resilience, hope, and the enduring power of a dream. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more. We'll see you next time.